Any more calls? I think we should have established this at the beginning. Please introduce yourself. Who are you, and what is your background, and why are you running?
Thank you so much. My name is Debra Medina. I am a registered nurse born and raised in Beeville, Texas, married to Noe. We have 2 children. Our daughter Janice and son-in-law Chris live in Portland, Oregon, and will be moving to Texas in December. And our son Jacob is a 20-year-old junior at Texas A&M University. We homeschool both of our children. Noe and I have worked hard and done some creative things to be able to manage to homeschool those 2 children while we both worked full-time. It was what it took to provide the kind of life that we wanted for those kids, and you're talking to someone who has been active in Republican Party politics since the early 90s, served as Republican County Chair, was in the midst of my 3rd term there when I decided to not stand by and watch more of the status quo shoved at us, and so I threw my hat in the ring, and we're working really hard. I hope your listeners will check us out at medinafortexas.com. Debra Medina from Wharton County, Texas, just southwest of Houston.
Have you held public office before?
The Republican County Chair is the only elected office that I've been in, and so I think you're really looking at someone who truly is one of you, has studied government, has worked as a grassroots activist within it, but hasn't been corrupted by holding office.
Okay, let's take another call. Good morning. You're on News Talk 550 with Debra Medina.
Yeah, thanks. Just wanted to get your opinion on illegal immigration, and also your thoughts about, instead of all this bilingualism, more along the lines of the way it used to be, assimilation into our country. And I'll take the answer off the air.
I think what we don't hear a lot about, and what you may be really alluding to, is, do we want a process of immigration, or are we supporting invasion? This country is great because of its people. The wealth of a nation is in our people. It's not necessarily in our natural resources, or we would see Africa being in much better shape, the nations of Africa being in much better shape than they are, and Japan being in much worse shape. The wealth of a nation is its people. We've got to support an immigration and, as you indicate, assimilation process, but not an invasion. And our neglect of our border, our turning away from law enforcement and an upholding of the rule of law has really hurt us. It's hurt the state of Texas in particular. Got a lot of challenges there. Certainly want to see things done that will quit throwing out the bait. Free health care, free education doesn't help any of us. It doesn't help the citizens of the state, and it's certainly unfair incentive to those from outside of our country to come here. It sends the wrong message. We've got to work on that. Having a sales tax to fund education will help with that in some regard. We're working hard on some of the health care issues. I'm a registered nurse by profession, and I believe that the EMTALA laws that were passed back in the early 90s really have set up that false promise of free health care. There is no such thing as free health care. We all pay for that. The federal government certainly has no business in health care, and I'm going to advocate that the state of Texas is spending way more than it should, as it has tried over the last 8 to 10 years to become a provider of health care services. The government's job with regard to health care is probably a regulatory one. It is certainly not one of providing service. So when we look at those two things, those are huge costs to our economy. I think we begin to see some policies put in place that will take away some of those incentives. Beyond that, I've got a lot of work to do in working with law enforcement folks, particularly along the border, as well as with business interest in the state of Texas. We've got ag and construction interests whose labor forces are drawn heavily from that population, and that's unfortunate that we've seen use of an illegal population. We certainly, if we're going to protect a constitutional republic, need to be upholding the law. We've got to take, I think, a hard, serious look at that, and I don't believe that either of the two candidates in the race currently have given it serious attention.
All right, let's take another call. Good morning. You're on News Talk 550 KCRS with Debra Medina.
Yes, guys, thanks for taking my call. Ms. Medina, I've been a conservative for a really long time, and I'm still waiting to hear from any of the Republican candidates some actual solid ideas other than really, like you had said earlier, platitudes about dealing with things like the dropout rate in public schools. And the only areas that I've really heard of that are ways to solve problems in our public school system have come from Democratic candidates. Do you have any specific ideas for curbing things like the dropout rate, or maybe like dual track programs in high school to get away from just the humanities-based approach to maybe a vocational approach? And I'll hang up and I'll take my answer off the air. Thank you.
You know, I think all of us have grown up with independent school districts, and I began to go back to the Constitution, as I often do when we look at government policy, to see what exactly we're supposed to be doing. We have a constitutional provision in Texas that says the state of Texas, in an effort to ensure that we have a populace that understands liberty, will provide a free public education for the general dissemination of knowledge. When you look at our history, we established these independent school districts. I wonder today what they're independent of. In fact, their strings are being pulled by Austin and by Washington. If we're going to have an education system that serves our children, and that ought to be the purpose of education. It ought to be to educate children. It is not to provide necessarily to provide jobs for people. The primary purpose of an education system is to educate children. That ought to be our goal. We ought to allow independent school districts to be independent and, again, to introduce competition there. I think there are a number of exciting initiatives that people have undertaken individually in their local communities to deal with the dropout rate. I'm studying a number of those now. I hope to be championing those, but not dictating them from Austin. I believe that it is that wisdom is found in people, and when we come together and discuss in a community the problems that we face, we're going to find the best solutions. We are definitely not going to have one-size-fits-all coming out of Washington, D.C. or Austin, Texas, that serves our children well. The focus needs to be on the kids, on the fact that they are encouraged to pursue education as a lifelong learning process, that they understand that that is what will make them, give them the greatest degree of freedom and the greatest prosperity, and encourage solid education and outcomes in the state of Texas.
What is your travel plans? I understand you're going to be out here in West Texas for the next day or two, or?
Actually, I think it's the third week of October. I believe I'm in Amarillo on the 19th, Abilene on the 20th, San Angelo on the 21st, Lubbock on the 22nd, and El Paso on the 23rd. So looks like we've got scattered showers all around you. Hope to be able to be back in West Texas in the Midland, Odessa area and other towns around that area in December. Frequently put up on our website and certainly on Facebook to say we're coming to your area if you'd like to host an event or like Debra to speak to your group. Please email us at invite@medinafortexas.com. If you've got a group or would assemble a group for me to talk to, then I'm happy to come your direction. I want to talk to as many Texans in as many parts of the state as we can. Certainly like to see audiences where we go speak, and that is not being too much of a problem. If you announce that you've got a solid candidate for governor, people are hungry for an alternative, and I am that alternative. You know, we've seen some interesting polls, and frequently in the polls it'll have Kay or Rick and somebody else, and somebody else wins. And so my challenge is just to let the state of Texas know that somebody else is Debra Medina. I'm here to run a serious campaign. Looking forward to talking to you. And you can invite me to your area by sending an email to invite@medinafortexas.com.